On a summer morning in the mountainous region of British Columbia, strong white sunlight streamed through the dense rows of pine trees along the quiet gravel road. Ethan Walker, a veteran park ranger and veterinarian, drove his familiar pickup truck toward the Clearwater Ridge Ranger Station amidst the quiet surroundings. The sound of tires rolling slowly on the road, combined with the scent of pine resin and damp grass, created a very familiar feeling for the man who had lived his entire life in the forest. Ethan held the steering wheel firmly, his eyes focused ahead, but his mind remained alert to any unusual occurrences in nature. Suddenly, a faint sound came from the roadside, causing him to instinctively slow down the car. It wasn't the sound of birds or the forest wind, but a broken, desperate cry. Ethan frowned, pulled the car over to the side of the road, and the park ranger's heart immediately sank. He understood that in these mountains and forests, every sound carried a story of survival. The car door opened slowly, and Ethan stepped out with the caution of someone who had witnessed too much loss. That very moment marked the beginning of an encounter that would change the destinies of both beings. Amidst the low green grass and gravelly soil, Ethan spotted a small bear cub standing alone at the edge of the road. Its fur was matted, damp, and dirty, and its body was so thin that the effects of prolonged exhaustion were clearly visible. The dark eyes widened, filled with both fear and hope, constantly scanning the surroundings as if searching for a familiar figure. Ethan quickly looked around, searching for traces of the mother bear, but found only the silent forest. There were no loud noises, no heavy footsteps nearby, only an eerie emptiness. The bear cub hesitated for a moment, then suddenly approached the pickup truck. It stood on its hind legs, using one trembling front paw to gently scratch at the doorknob. That innocent act resembled a plea more than a wild reflex. Ethan felt a lump in his throat as he realized the little animal was completely alone. He understood that he was standing before a being who had been forgotten by the world. Ethan slowly lowered himself, maintaining a safe distance, his voice low and slow to avoid startling the bear. The bear cub didn't run away, it just tilted its head and sniffed the air around the man. Its shrunken, empty belly clearly showed that it hadn't had a full meal in a long time. Ethan turned to his car and pulled out a bottle of emergency milk that he always carried with him on his long patrols. As the scent of milk filled the air, the bear immediately moved closer, its eyes glowing faintly. Ethan knelt down, holding the bottle steadily as if he were caring for a young patient. The bear stood upright on its hind legs, its front paws tightly gripping the milk bottle. In that moment, the boundary between humans and animals seemed to disappear completely. All that remained was absolute trust, forged in silence. Ethan knew he had no choice but to save this life. After drinking all the milk from the bottle, the bear cub didn't return to the forest as Ethan had predicted. She stood waiting beside him, her eyes following his every move. As Ethan returned to the car, the bear slowly trailed behind. Each small step carried an absolute trust in the person in front of her. Ethan opened the car door, looked back at the bear, and then sighed as if he had just made a big decision. He knew that putting the bear cub in the car was the only way to keep it alive. The bear obediently walked close to the wheels, showing no signs of fear or aggression. The trees in the distance gradually receded as the car began to move. Ethan was driving while communicating with his colleagues at the ranger station. A bad feeling arose in his heart about the story behind this bear cub. At the Clearwater Ridge Ranger Station, the bear was taken straight to the medical room. Ethan put on gloves and gently placed the bear on the examination table covered with a clean cloth. The little animal lay still, its eyes following every movement of the doctor. Ethan carefully checked the patient's heart rate, reflexes, and joints. There were no signs of broken bones or serious injuries. Initial diagnosis suggests the bear was simply debilitated due to prolonged starvation and stress. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief, feeling as if he had just saved a fragile life. At that moment, he decided to name it Maple. The name is reminiscent of the Canadian maple tree, a symbol of resilience and rebirth. From that moment on, Maple officially had a place in this world. Other rangers quickly arrived at the station after receiving Ethan's notification. They brought with them information that made the medical room feel heavy. 2 days ago, the patrol team discovered the carcass of a female bear at the foot of a nearby cliff. The body lay motionless among the rocks and moss, indicating an irreversible fall. There were no signs of hunting or trapping, just a cruel accident of nature. Everyone understood that Maple was the offspring of that unfortunate mother bear. Perhaps after her mother's death, Maple wandered aimlessly, desperately searching for a way to survive. The road where Ethan encountered it was also where Maple last sought help. Silence fell over the room as everyone looked at the little bear. In that moment, Maple was no longer just a rescue case, but a life entrusted to her care. Maple was moved into a large, semi-wild enclosure located just behind the ranger station. This space has green grass, soft soil, and natural sunlight throughout the day. Ethan visits every day to check on Maple's health, feed her, and observe her behavior. He always maintained a balance between caring for the animals and not letting them lose their wild instincts. Maple gradually got used to her new environment and no longer panicked whenever someone appeared. It began to play, run, jump, and curiously explore its surroundings. Every afternoon, Ethan would sit a distance away, quietly observing. He knew that excessive attachment would make it difficult to return to the forest. Nevertheless, Maple's eyes always searched for Ethan whenever he appeared. The invisible bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. In just 1 month, Maple's transformation surprised everyone at the ranger station. Its body was fuller, its gait steady, and it was full of energy. His brown coat became thick and silky, reflecting the brilliant summer sun. The rangers began teaching Maple basic survival skills. From finding food in nature to responding to sounds in the forest and mountains. Maple learns very quickly, as if its wild instincts are gradually awakening. Ethan continued to monitor his health regularly, carefully recording every change. He knew that the most crucial phase had begun. Maple is no longer the frail little bear cub she once was, left on the side of the road. It is gradually becoming a creature strong enough to face the depths of the jungle. A year passed, and Maple had grown into a healthy young bear. He had a large, muscular build and a thick coat of fur that covered his entire body. Even though she was perfectly capable of surviving, Maple recognized Ethan from a distance. It stood on its hind legs, gently touching its front paws to his hand, just like in the old days. Ethan laughed loudly, stepping back to maintain the proper distance expected of a park ranger. That moment was both heartwarming and full of professional discipline. Maple played around for a while, then turned and headed back towards the deep forest. Ethan stood still, watching the bear's figure disappear behind the trees. He understood that a successful rescue was not about keeping the animal alive. Rather, it's about giving a living being the opportunity to live in accordance with its own world.